Before Facebook stole its thunder, MySpace was the biggest place to be social online. But let's not forget that in 2005, one girl met a man on MySpace. A man who stole her life slowly and painfully. Watch yourself online. You're watching Darkness Prevails, the best place to share your creepy stories with the world. Because this world is a strange one. MySpace is making a comeback. As of February 28, 2018, it's attracted 15 million monthly users. The website is far from unpopular these days, but that can also mean something else. Another place for victims and prey to be found, for those human predators. So be careful online, or you could become your own MySpace horror story. Remember, you can always share your stories with me using the links in the description. I'm currently looking for scary stories from Tinder. And if you want to support this channel beyond just views, think about donating $1 a month at patreon.com/darknessprevails. Also, stick around to the end of the video to see if your early comment from a previous video was one of my favorites. Now, enjoy these allegedly true MySpace scary stories. Number 1. MySpace Horror Experience, submitted by Anonymoose. I'm from New York. This story happened a few years back. I don't have many friends and I'm pretty much antisocial. But then one of my friends that I actually do have, let's call him Tom, told me about MySpace. I decided to give it a try, so I signed up. Around an hour later, after setting up my account properly, I actually received a friend request. It was from an unknown user. I found it very strange that this person tried to friend me just an hour or so after I joined. But then again, to be honest, I was in need of friends, and I was kind of excited that someone had requested me. So I accepted. Then they soon sent me a message. Just, hey. I replied back almost instantly. Hi, how are you? The user responded with, good. This went on for quite some time, exchanging very small talk here and there, but nothing very personal. But then they began to ask me weird questions. So, how old are you? Then, where do you live? Red flags started to go off in my head. Now, I never shared my age or my address unless it was with Tom, or someone I knew in person. So I knew what he was doing was weird, and it just felt wrong. Maybe they were just trying to get to know me, but it was just too much for me. So I blocked the guy and unfriended him. I decided I didn't want anything more to do with him. For the next few days, nothing really happened. I'd met plenty of people on MySpace, none of them like the weirdo I met a few days back. Halfway during one of my school classes, I got a few messages from another user on MySpace, and being bored of the class at the time, I told my teacher I needed to use the restroom, and when I got to the bathroom, I read my messages. So why did you block me? The first one said. What? I thought. I read the next one. You shouldn't have done that, it said. I could feel my hands shaking and my anxiety welling up. I wasn't good in these situations, and I wasn't expecting these messages. The last one read, I'm going to find you. That's when I went wide-eyed. There was no one else it could be but the creep who had messaged me before. Why was he following me around, continuing to pursue me on MySpace? I responded to the last message. Please just leave me alone. You're not gonna find me. You don't know where I live. That was the last straw. I unfriended that account too and blocked him. No more accepting random and suspicious friend requests for me. Later when I got home that night, I was watching some TV in my room when someone knocked at the back door. This frightened me a bit, because usually you get someone knocking at the front door, Because my back door and backyard were surrounded by a fence, meaning someone would have to climb over the fence to do that. And that, my friends, is the furthest thing from normal. I slowly got up from the couch, and I walked to the door. When I looked out the window, I noticed a tall silhouette, and when I saw that, I can't describe how I felt at the moment. The tall figure knocked again, yelling, "I told you you shouldn't have blocked me. Don't you want to be friends with me?" It was him, the same guy that was still trying to get to me. I yelled back that I was calling the police, and when they arrived, they found only footprints in the backyard, but nothing else. But I couldn't stop thinking about the event. How did he know where I lived, and what did he want? The fact that I still don't know to this day after all these years, it scares me. I hope I find out eventually, because I want the truth. As for now, I hope it was just a prank that went a little too far. Number 2. MySpace Creeper. Submitted by Spunky. It was around 2005 and 2006. This story still gives me the creeps. It took place over a 1-year period. I've always been an outgoing person. Making friends came easy to me, and I tend to be a no bullcrap kind of person. I've also, despite its popularity, have never been one to spend much time on social media. I really don't care if someone had a salad for lunch, or they got a free bottle at some club. At the time, in my early 20s, I was enjoying the single life after being in a long-term serious relationship. One evening, relaxing in bed after a long day, I was online chatting with a friend of mine via MySpace, when a friend request popped up from a guy named G. I had no idea who this was and didn't accept his friend request. However, I did reply to a message he sent, which was simple enough. "Hey, I'm pretty bored, and I don't know how I found you, but you're cute. Wanna chat?" Despite talking for almost 2 hours, I still didn't accept his friend request, but we did have a good relaxing time talking, which was something I didn't expect to happen. For the next few days, G would write me on MySpace. He never crossed any lines besides just light flirting. And after the 4th or 5th day, I finally decided to accept his friend request. During our conversations, I found out he had just moved to my state, and he hadn't really made any friends. Now, I'm not into clubs, or dressing up in next to nothing with a pound of makeup and having guys grind against me. Those just aren't my ideas of having a good time. I'm more into grunge bars, bowling, and or letting my inhibitions go by dancing like an idiot to 80s cover bands, amongst a plethora of other things. Needless to say, some friends and I had made plans to hit up a Wednesday's 80s night at a casino, and after asking everyone if they were cool with it, I invited G. Up to this point, we had only talked online. I hadn't exchanged numbers with him, and during our conversations, despite his failed attempts at flirting with me, I informed him that if he was looking for more than a friend, he was looking in the wrong spot. He claimed he understood, and this was why I invited him. I trusted what he said then. And for a side note, I don't drink, and I can't drink, in fact. I'm allergic to something within alcoholic beverages, from beer to hard liquor. It all sends me to the hospital within a few sips. I also don't do any drugs, and I don't smoke. I'm pretty much a square in that sense, yet I'm the life of the party. Anyway, my friends and I had a blast. We'd been dancing our butts off for hours, and it was coming up to 3 a.m., but G never showed up. Everyone was asking where he was, expecting him to be there, and I figured he had just changed his mind and didn't let me know. As we were walking through the casino to the 24-hour buffet, G came out of nowhere and startled me by jokingly wrapping his hands around my waist and pretending to drag me away as if he were stumbling. I don't like strangers touching me, and I didn't take this act lightly. However, I let it go because he quickly realized he made a mistake, especially after he saw the look on my face. The rest of the morning went really well. He joined us for a bite to eat, and he seemed to get along with my other friends. When it was time to say goodbye, however, things got weird. I gave some friends hugs and others kisses, and for whatever reason, he thought he was in line for receiving the same treatment. When I instead gave him a wave, he got visually upset and refused to speak to me, and even stormed off. Warning flag number 1, I guess. When I woke up later that day, he had messaged me on MySpace. He thanked me for a wonderful night, talked about how much he enjoyed my friends, and said he wanted to go out with us again and apologized for his attitude when he left, claiming he just had an upset stomach from the food. He then mentioned I was more beautiful in person than in my photos, and he didn't think that it was possible, that my personality was electric and he felt like a moth to a flame. He ended it with, he would love to be honored to hang out with me again. Warning sign number 2. However, my friends said they could take him or leave him, and truthfully, I agreed. Something felt off about G. I hardly spoke to him throughout the week. I made no excuses for my absence. That following Wednesday, my friends and I met up again for 80s night, but this time I didn't invite G. A few hours into the night, a male friend and I were dancing our butts off to a song. On our way back to the table, I noticed an extra person sitting with everyone, but being dark, I couldn't see who it was. You can imagine my confusion and surprise when I saw that it was G. My friends did that exaggerated, look who decided to show up. Had so much fun last time that he couldn't stay away. He figured he'd be here since we were here last week. Me being me, instead of saying hi and being polite like most, I said, "Gee, what are you doing here? We didn't invite you, and I know none of them did." My friends are used to my ways and just looked up at him for an answer, but instead of giving one, he laughed uncomfortably and bought rounds from the waitress for everybody, and he bought me a Coke. Needless to say, he stuck around the whole night. No matter what I did or where I went, he followed. At the end of the night, I told him this friendship of ours wasn't going to work, and I wished him the best of luck finding his own friends. For me, that was that, but G had other plans. For the next week, he wrote me message after message. I had not only blocked him, but also removed him from my friends, so I haven't a clue on how he was able to write me still. And of course, that following Wednesday, he showed up again. My friends had arrived before I had, because I was running unusually late. My friend JB met up with me outside by the bar. He tells me G was inside waiting for them, and especially me, and that he wasn't sitting at a table. Instead, he was waiting in a dark corner as if he wasn't trying to be seen. My friends, being awesome, thank God, left one by one as if they were going to the bathroom or hitting up another bar, and they met up with me at a bowling alley. According to them, G searched for me the whole time. He kept looking over at our table, the dance floor, and then towards the entrance and exits by the bar, and then he checked the bathrooms even. He continued this pattern the entire time, but luckily I think we confused him and lost him. We had a blast bowling. We'll have the thoughts and conversation of G behind us, and had a boys versus girls night. As it got late, we were deciding if we wanted to play one more game, when G comes walking into the bowling alley. Now, this place is huge. When you walk in, there's a full-sized bar to the right, a massive food court to the left, and down the middle is the rental counter and some scattered tables. On either side are the lanes, close to 40 of them, and at the far end were lockers and restrooms. We were literally at the far end, furthest from the entrance, and it was a super busy night. The lanes were packed. My friend spotted him before I did, and before he spotted us. We hid, deciding not to play another game, and we left our shoes sitting at the lane. We rushed to the locker room, and we watched G literally search the entire bowling alley, like some sort of twitchy hawk. At one point, he even went up to the rental counter and asked about me. We split up and made a game out of getting me out unseen, which we somehow managed to do. And though it was fun and we were kind of silly about it, I couldn't help but feel a little bit creeped out that this was happening to me. For the next month, G showed up every Wednesday and ruined our 80s nights. I wasn't about to go just to have it ruined by being stalked and having to yell at someone each and every time who wouldn't get the hint. It was easier to just stay away for a while. I did, however, write G a message on MySpace telling him to stop stalking me, telling him that he's ruining everything, that I not only didn't want to be his girlfriend, but I didn't want to know him anymore, that it was a mistake to even have invited him to begin with, and if he continued, I would call the police. He quickly wrote me back, apologizing and claiming he just wanted to be friends, and he only showed up so we could talk since I wasn't responding to his MySpace attempts. Sickeningly, when I wrote this letter to him, the first sentence in his response was of eagerness and relief that I was finally talking to him again. This guy had no social skills at all, and he seemed dangerous. Months passed by, and I left G in the past, trying to resume my life. One night while at my favorite local grunge bar, a familiar face came in, and immediately I knew my night was ruined. Typically, when a guy sees a girl being hassled, he takes the opportunity to go up to her as if they're dating to get rid of whoever is bothering her. And that night I was talking to a larger guy who looked like he could handle himself, and I sat close to him snugly. I asked him if he had a girl and he said no, and I proceeded to tell him I had a stalker who just entered the bar. When he looked over my shoulder to G, who was standing right behind me now, G was enraged. He was crying and his eyes were bloodshot and he seemed drunk and unstable. Right away he began shouting at me that I was his girl, and I had been his girl since the moment we spoke online, and I had broken his heart repeatedly. But he continued to give me chance after chance, and that's why he always watched me, always followed me. Needless to say, I chose right. The larger man next to me put him in his place, and along with a couple of his friends, they escorted him out of the bar physically. That night when I got home, G sent me a dozen or so messages on MySpace, all erratic, and the last few were threatening himself and me with physical harm. The guy was insane. I just ignored him and his threats, saving the threats just in case he made actual attempts on them. The other guy, the one I met at the bar that escorted him out that night, we ended up dating for some time off and on, and through his connections, I later found out G had been following me from day one. The first night, when we thought he decided not to show, he was in fact spying and taking photos of me from a distance. Apparently, he had a lot of pictures of me, and would often Photoshop himself into ones of me from my MySpace page, adding his picture over whoever was next to me in the photo. How freaky is that? Then he'd been telling his family and friends back home that we were in love and were planning on getting married. He made up an entire fictitious relationship with vacations, dates, outings, living together, purchases, friends, etc. It was so complex it was sickening. It's been many years since I've thought about G, and even longer since I've heard from him. So G, if you're reading this, get a clue. No means no, and for all of you reading this, you have no obligation to accept a friend request, and if you ever get an off feeling about it, you might as well listen to it. The worst that happens is nothing, but by not listening, The horrors could be endless. Be firm, save the proof, and don't feed into their erratic behavior. It only fulfills their need to be connected, and it's better to be safe than sorry. Number 3. MySpace Scary Story, submitted by Steven. I was 13 when this happened, and being relatively new to using social media, I didn't know what to do and what not to do. And let me tell you, I was extremely gullible. So when a random person who claimed to be Vanessa Hudgens' sister, we started messaging back and forth on MySpace, and eventually I messaged her my phone number. We had scheduled a call together, and my mother had answered the phone and said there was a man on there for me. I got really confused for a minute, so I took the phone. The person on the other end said, "Hello, Steven. It's good to hear from you. I said I'd call, didn't I?" Hearing a man's voice all of a sudden gave me goosebumps right away, immediately learning a lesson about social media. Well, not even a week later, a strange car began to sit near our house in our neighborhood. It had never been there before, and it was definitely none of the neighbors, because it would never park in a driveway and no one would ever exit the vehicle, not from what I saw. After the third day, my parents reported the strange occurrences to the cops, and I awkwardly and embarrassingly had to tell them about my MySpace messages to a man who I thought was a girl. It's really nothing to be embarrassed about. I did nothing wrong. Reporting it earlier would have been the best option. So a detective in an unmarked vehicle waited around the neighborhood, and eventually they caught the guy. When they saw that he was wanted for another crime in Baltimore City, he was immediately arrested, because apparently he was wanted for rape in a different town. He definitely ruined MySpace for me, and for the next few years after that, I had a fear of having a social account online, and that's why I didn't get into Facebook until I was at least 21. Be careful who you talk to online, and never give away too much information. Number 4. The Haunted Account, submitted by evilwashere. Prepare yourself for a story that sounds ridiculous. And believe me, I never expected something like this was even possible. I just wish that it never happened. Back in 2007, I was a MySpace freak. Literally. My favorite thing wasn't making friends or talking to people I've met online. Instead, it was finding the cringiest, creepiest, and most suspicious or strange-looking MySpace accounts I could find, and follow them. This led me to the account, the haunted account, as I refer to it now, for good reason. The username on the account was FFF_6_FFF, a strange username to say the least. Better yet was their page design. The page had a black background, and there was a single picture on the left, with some text on the right. The picture showed something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It was a woman in underwear running through the woods, with what looked like a camera flash lighting up her backside. Her clothes and skin were dirty with dried mud and scrapes, and she appeared to be in the middle of falling, as she had stepped on something. The bottom of the image was so blurry, as it was in mid-movement, but as I looked closer, I believe what she had stepped on was a bear trap. "What the actual hell?" I said under my breath. And then I smiled. I assumed I'd stumbled upon some sort of page for an indie horror film, to garner some attention the way the creators of the Blair Witch did. So my curiosity was piqued. Then I read the very small body of text to the right. I could tell right away it was a poem, and this is what it said. "Awake, scream, asleep, cry,
You will only know torment until the second you die. Click, see, close away. Those who do see will have the price to pay.
I shut my laptop then. My heart was pounding, and I felt that I was seeing or reading something I wasn't meant to. What did I just read? And why did it make me feel like someone was now watching me? It was then that something hit my window. I was on the second story of my house, so I assumed it was a bird that slammed headfirst into the glass. There was even a huge crack in it now. I looked outside trying to find the body of the bird, on the windowsill or on the ground below, but there was nothing. Maybe it was okay and flew away, but considering how hard it had hit it, I doubted that. I called it a night and went to bed, but only after turning on my closet light and leaving the door wide open. I was just too creeped out. It took me about 2 hours to start drifting off, and just when I thought I would be asleep soon, something else happened. The light in the closet clicked off. It's just the bulb going out, I told myself, or rather, I hoped. I turned over on my back and watched the closet, now completely dark with the door still open. I wanted to get up to close it, but I couldn't will myself to do it. I was too scared, so I just tried to sit back and go to sleep. Then I woke up to the sound of screaming. It sounded like a woman's scream. I woke up, sweating, and covered my ears because it was so loud. I got up right away and ran to my mother's room. But it wasn't her, she was sleeping. I woke her up, and she was tired and cranky, but didn't have a chance to say anything, as I asked her if she was hearing that. She said, "Hear what?" I removed my hands from my head and realized the screaming had stopped. It took me half an hour of Cartoon Network on the TV to detox from my fear. Then I finally get the courage to return to my room. I managed to fall asleep in my bed after a while, but after that night, there was an entirely new tradition going on in my room every night, like clockwork. My closet door opening if it was shut, or closing if it was open. It would do it slowly, so slow it was deliberate. It couldn't be air pressure. This didn't stop. I was even able to show friends who spent the night with me, and they always thought I was just pranking them. I've moved out since then, and I never went back to that MySpace page. But to this day, there's a burning feeling inside me to know what I stumbled upon that night, and what had I released into my room. And number 5, Wrong Person, submitted by Harold. Back when MySpace was the big thing, and I was just a middle schooler, it was my main source of social contact when I was home, while pretending to do homework. I'd chat it up with friends, seek out new friends to increase that arbitrary friend count. I had a habit of accepting friend requests from everyone. I didn't care if I knew them or not. It made me feel like some sort of false celebrity with how many people were my friends, even though it really meant nothing at all. Well, doing that was a very grave mistake. I friended someone who sent me a message that wasn't meant for me. I believe they had confused me with someone else. This is how I recall the conversation going. "Hey, check out this pic. I think I did better this time." This message had a link that I clicked. It was an image of a man lying on the ground foaming at the mouth. It looked like it was in some filthy bathroom, maybe at some bar. Who is this? And what's up with that picture? Is he okay?" "What? This is Harold, right? This is what you asked me to do. Don't play dumb with me. I'm getting what I'm owed." "Dude, I don't know you, and I'm going to report this." Must be the wrong Harold. Still, just try to report it. and you'll end up like him. Maybe you shouldn't put your address on your MySpace page. I blocked him after that and erased my address info from my page, which was only there because my friends and I had a skate club that took place regularly at my place every week. I was a horrified kid, so I didn't report the guy. Soon I forgot about it, as luckily enough, nothing came of it. But as I reflect on it now, being an adult, I'm disturbed that I never reported it, because who knows what he had done to that man, or how many times he has done it to someone else since. It's always fun to connect with your friends, especially when they're busy or far away. Social media allows us to connect no matter where we are, and whether you use Facebook or MySpace or something else, each is just a flavor of that connection. Just never forget that people often do die when they don't take social media seriously and cautiously. They catch the eye of people who have a need to fulfill, and your corpse could fill that hole. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Check out morbidmonsters.com for some awesome merch, from mugs and stickers to decals and t-shirts. And real quick, here are my favorite early comments from my previous video on State Park Scary Stories. Diego Garcia says, "More dark web stories, please." That actually sounds like a great idea. Frozen Raichu says, "My parents always take the family to state parks in the summer. Maybe I'll send you my own story. As long as you're alive and mentally well, I'll gladly take that story. I wish you well." Blue Tag Schoberg says, "Man, that intro's actually sad." Yeah, the real world is often worse than any horror film or story. I'm Your Huckleberry says, "I made it for early comments. What's up? Can you do some La Llorona stories?" For sure, she's crazy creepy. And Trin J says, "Finally early. Love you, Darkness. Thank you for working so hard." I've been getting a lot of hate lately from commenters, so honestly it's always good to hear from those who support me. Speaking of which, to everyone who's still listening, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and stay creepy.